Welcome to Not This, Not That, where we push our boundaries of understanding and perception. I am your host, Reverend Patricia Caginello, and I invite you to join me as we open to the possibility that things may not be exactly as you believe, as you've been told, that there could be more, that in our collective consciousness is the potential for the all. You can find Not This, Not That on the Sacred Stories podcast on sacredstoriesmedia.com and on iTunes and all streaming services. Click to subscribe and join us each show. Today, we are expanding our boundaries of understanding on the topic of a greater galactic community, specifically a consortium of elevated non-dual beings who are committed to supporting the graceful evolution of Earth, and they are called the Ashtar Command. We have the pleasure of speaking with Joy Elaine, the author of the 6-book series, The Joy Chronicles, and one of the foremost experts in the world on the Ashtar Command. Joy has her fingers on the pulse of the evolving Earth and has a profound understanding of the nature of the 47 universes and many of the races that inhabit them. So welcome, Joy Elaine, to Not This, Not That.
Hi, Patricia. Glad to be having a chance to speak with you this evening.
Yeah, I'm really excited you're here as well, Joy, because the topic that we're going to talk about, the greater galactic community and the beings that are here to support us, I think are, really important to a lot of people. I think there's a great curiosity and interest, in this topic.
Yes. Tonas, the Ashtar Commander that I met in the first book, told me that people are really, interested in seeing the spaceships. Of course, they have really superior cloaking abilities, so usually we don't see them, and they stay on the higher dimensions of Earth, which is impossible for us to penetrate at this point. But fun information that he's told me in the series of books that I've written.
Right. So what you're referring to is your 6-book series called The Joy Chronicles, which are your real life experiences with the Ashtar Command and with Tonas, the commander. And we're going to talk about, we will talk about the books for sure, but let's dig in a little bit to kind of what the Ashtar Command is, who they are, and so forth. So right from the beginning, just to make sure that everybody who's listening, we're kind of all in the same galaxy, right? And so it's on the same page. We mentioned the idea of a non-dual being. What do you mean when you use that term?
Well, the exciting thing about non-duality is that's what we are evolving to become. And let me just tell you a few things about Tonas that will maybe explain what non-duality is. He is over 25 million years old. He remembers everything that his parents ever experienced. He doesn't age. He can choose any appearance that he wishes. He wants to be 2 inches taller, he can be that. But he's settled in how he likes to look, and I've seen him, and he is absolutely stunningly handsome. So non-dual, instant manifestation is the ability that non-dual beings have. And I was really intrigued by that because I thought, wow, if that's what we're evolving to be able to do, well, we've got a little ways to go before we do that. But I think the books that I've written explain how we can move more easily and more speedily into that realm of non-duality, which is, by the way, Earth's 8th dimension, non-dual. So non-dual, that was very appealing to me. I wanted to find out more about how I could be non-dual. And it's our heritage. It's a destiny for all of us. So good news. That's the good news about it.
Good news. Hopefully the majority of us will get there, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we need to back up even further, though, because we're speaking of the Ashtar Command and the Commander Tonas that you have met and have a relationship with. I'll say a romantic relationship, not to give away too much of the storyline of your experiences that you've shared in your books, but let's just explain who or what is the Ashtar Command to begin with.
Well, the command was formed about 120,000 years ago, and of course that's a blink of an eye to non-dual beings, but it's a good long period of time for us humans. And the purpose was, at that point in humanity's evolution, humans started having souls. Now, there were humans before that, but they were They were pretty mechanical beings. I mean, we've seen some of the skeletons of those very early humans. And we're talking about a more advanced form of humanity. And once humans started having souls, all the other beings that had been studying here on Earth had to leave because it was hands off. You know, we have the right of free will. We have the ability to chart our own destiny. And so the Ashtar Command is supporting us in that. They do guard the Earth. At the time I met Tonas in the first book, there were 86 million Ashtar Command ships stationed above Earth on the 9th and 10th dimension. Now, how do they assist us? Well, one of the prime laws of the galactic councils is that no species can be advanced beyond its readiness. So that means they don't come down and fix things like my older son asked me to. Mom, why don't they just come down and fix them? That just doesn't happen. So they keep other worlds from stealing things from Earth. They have the ability to redirect asteroids and other kinds of debris that might land on Earth and cause, serious harm. And they are now, there's actually more Ashtar Command ships now because they have expanded into the other universes to assist worlds in those universes that are evolving. So at this time, there's only about 40 million ships above Earth, and the number of ships has tripled. So there's approximately 270 million Ashtar Command ships spread out through the other universes, which I thought was a pretty staggering number.
That absolutely is a staggering number. So before we talk about Tonas and some of the other people or beings that you have met and interact with, tell us a little bit about an Ashtar Command ship. You said there's 40 million of them. Are they very small? I mean, what was your experience on at least the ship that you have been on?
Well, they range in size from small to ones that are as big as the city of Chicago. And remember that since the commanders are non-dual, they can create a ship with a thought. They can enlarge a ship with a thought. By the time the party gets to the end of the first book, by the time we had everybody that I invited, other people started coming. And so Tonas expanded the ship to be about 50 times bigger than when we started. So I couldn't really find a picture on the internet of what an Ashtar Command ship looks like. Tonas described them as two crystalline pie pans, one on top of the other. I know they're very sleek. They have viewing windows all the way around the outside, but the windows look like they're part of the ship. They're crystalline and they can be directed to magnify things. So Tonas could see an ant here on Earth from the higher dimensions. So I did see the inside of another ship that was responsible for keeping track of certain individuals. And the wall that I saw was probably 100 feet long, maybe 30 feet high. And it had, compare the most technical airplane control panel, and it would seem to be lacking compared to this wall. There was lights, there was all kinds of handles and things that I didn't understand what they were for, but it was really very impressive. And that was a ship called the Crawley. So, I've only been inside, mostly inside Tonas' ship, because in the second book we formed a council on the moon and inside the Earth, and I do a lot of my work from those positions now. The ships move like with a thought. From one, I went with Tonas from one universe to another universe. It took us about a minute, and there was no sensation of movement. There was no sound. There was none of the Star Trek, vroom kind of stuff. It was just, he was chatting with me while he directed the ship with his mind to another universe to pick up something that we brought back to our universe. So I don't know if it was the universe next to ours, but, another universe was pretty astonishing to me.
So it's really fascinating, not to get off on a tangent, but I may have to for a moment. When you talk about space-time travel, and I know that, myself as a spiritual being that I can travel, with a thought, right? And I always said, I'm not somebody who gets in those spaceships and has to actually travel. So what you just talked about, though, really kind of brings the idea of the purpose of, physical objects into, more into focus. So they don't necessarily maybe need or not all of the galactic beings need the ships in order to travel. I'm sure there's many that do, like humans around the universe or galaxies, but they have purposes. Also, the ships, you know what I'm saying? Like, in addition to just being something they travel in. Does that make sense? Can you kind of expand on that a little bit? Because that was like, oh, wow, that's an interesting thing. I didn't think about that these advanced beings would use the ships for other purposes.
Right. Well, of course, the non-dual, since they're non-dual, they can teleport. They don't have to take a ship. They can move to a planet. But the ships themselves, Tonas said, first of all, they don't have any weapons on them, so they never fire on another ship. All right. Their ships are so superior and their shields are so powerful that other ships can fire on them if they can even see them. Tonas said most ships don't even see the Ashtar Command because they're at a higher level of existence. They're a higher vibratory level. But for example, I said, well, what do you do, if you've got a bunch of bad guys, what do you do with them? You don't kill them. You don't put them in prison. He said, well, one thing we can do is we can just pick up their ship and take it to another universe. And it takes them a long time to get back because they don't have that, non-dual ability of moving instantly. And I thought that was a pretty benign way of dealing with the situation.
Well, I think based on what we see in the world today, benign is good, right?
Yeah.
I'm all for benign at this point. So we've talked about, Tonas. So Tonas is a commander, and it's the person that or the being that you have a relationship with and has taught you, and you've experienced many things about, that you write in your book series, the Joy Chronicles. You write about this, you introduce them, and you introduce a number of other galactic beings and so forth that you've come into contact with. Are there women you've come into contact with? Are there women in the Ashtar Command?
There are about 20% of the command are women, and that includes Ashtar Commanders. So the commander is important, but they are the crew on the ship. They are of one mind. Remember, it's telepathy. Mm-hmm. So when Tonas, if he wants everybody to know what he's thinking, he just has that intent. If he wants to have a private conversation with me, he does, and the others don't hear. Telepathy is really superior to words because you get the whole message, you get the whole picture, and there's no lies. It's like seeing the entire movie from beginning to end instantly.
It sounds so fascinating. You must have how long have you been interacting with the Ashtar Command? How many years has it been now?
Since 2014.
Okay, so the past 4.5, 5 years have probably been a lot of fun for you, I would think.
It's been magical, and it's been intense. Some of the events, the first 3 books, there's not a lot of drama. It's getting to know people. It's meeting the fairies and the dragons and the Ashtar Commanders and finding out what's the possibility for our future. But pretty soon, the you-know-what hits the fan, and there's a lot more drama than I wanted to experience. But, that's the way of duality. I encountered 2 entire universes, where every world in the universe was at war with the others. And I was very thankful that was not our universe.
Right.
We have enough going on here on Earth to keep our hands full with being, trying to assist people. So, yeah, big surprises about what's really going on. And I think people will be fascinated to see the behind the scenes, where are the fairies? Where are the dragons? How are they involved in our story? And that comes across in the books, especially beginning with book 2.
There is so much in the books, and the books are, the series is called the Joy Chronicles, and everyone can find out more about it on at joyelaine.com. But before we wrap up and talk a little bit more about the books, you mentioned that the Ashtar Command is to help us. It's here to help us. It's here to protect us, right? And
Yes.
we started that there is a tremendous amount of interest in the galactic community or beings that are here. Many people feel them, believe in them, have had contact with them, such as yourself. So how can people, those people and others, how can they possibly communicate with the Ashtar Command themselves or help the Ashtar Command actually help us?
Well, that's a good question. And I would say just telepathically have the intent to connect with a commander. The one that's most ideal to speak with you and to assist you and to uplift you. Tonas told me that there are no Ashtar Command individuals on Earth. I know that Osiris sometimes comes and sits in disguise and has a cup of coffee and watches things. But for the Ashtar Command to appear all of a sudden above, the skies here of Earth would cause pretty much panic for most of the population. So the other way, besides just telepathically intending to connect with a commander or a crew member, is to go to my website under World Missions. And there is something called Implement World Missions with the Ashtar Command. And your guided Archangel Michael assists you to move on to a command ship that will move to a position over Earth, one of 3 different positions that Ashtar set up with me, to do your bit for helping Earth. So, you can hang out on the ship when you're there and chat for a few minutes and then, do your work. So that's a guided meditation that you actually will energetically visit an Ashtar Command ship.
Right. And I'm so glad you brought up the world missions that are on your website. Listeners, if you would like to visit joyelaine.com, JOYELAINE.com, you will find out not only so much about the 6 books, which is chronicling really her life experiences with the Ashtar Command, but Joy is also in service, as is the Ashtar Command, in helping this our world, and you do have a number of different opportunities through what you've created called World Missions. And so I encourage everyone to do that. So before we go, again, the 6 books, tell us the name of the 6 books, in this series from the beginning to, book 1 to book 6, if you don't mind.
Right. Path of Sweetness, Blossoming of Love, A Wish is Granted, Paths of Freedom, Return of Dragons, and Spaceship Earth. Now, if you'll find on my website under books, under the books tab, there is a page about each book. There's a page of highlights. There's a short video about each book. And if you purchase one of the books, they're also available on Kindle. You'll move directly to the Amazon website. It's easiest to find my books if you start with my website, and then it just shuttles you to Amazon.
Mm-hmm. So your website is joyelaine.com.
Yes.
And again, the 6-book series is called the Joy Chronicles, and there's a wonderful adventure series where you'll meet not only the Ashtar Command and learn so much more about them, but many other galactic beings and Earth beings, right, that are within our Earth that Joy has met and interacted with, and the adventures, real life adventures that you've participated in. So I think it's phenomenal. I have to say, Joy Elaine, I give you want to give you a lot of credit. I think you're probably one of the coolest people I've, at least virtually met. The only one I know, at least, that has had experiences with the Ashtar Command. But I also think that I want to give you credit for being so courageous to really be speaking your truth and putting it out there, because I talk to people all the time and they have had experiences that are a lot more ordinary, than interacting with galactic spaceships and beings, and they're really reticent to share their story for concern of being judged or by different people. And so I think it's phenomenal you have had these experiences are ongoing, and that you are courageous enough and in really in service the way that you are, in order to, write these 6 books and then speak about them to bring other people, information.
Thank you, Patricia. I was so uplifted by what I learned in the first book that I really realized I had to write them. So I wanted to share the good news with everybody.
And good news it is. So I encourage everyone to go to joyelaine.com, JOYELAINE.com, to learn about the 6-book series, the Joy Chronicles, participate in the world missions in order to be of service, to our earth, and a host of other information that Joy has on our website. Final thoughts, Joy, that you would like to share with the audience?
When you start realizing that the things that you saw as a little girl or a little boy, you saw fairies when you were little, and you start reading these books and you'll remember how magical life on earth really is. And the more that you consciously become aware of where we are and where we're going, that's really exciting. You get to move out of the humdrum. If you've got a humdrum life, there's no excuse for having an exciting life. Wonderful life, a manifesting life that's magical.
So that will be our wish for everyone this evening, is that everyone begins or has more of a magical life here on earth. That's wonderful. Joy Elaine, thank you so much for being my guest this evening.
Thank you, Patricia.
So once again, Joy's website is joyelaine.com. I am your host, Reverend Patricia Caginello, and you have been listening to Not This, Not That on the Sacred Stories podcast.